But the rise in popularity for One Nation and its leader, Pauline Hanson, well, it's dominated the sitting week in Canberra. We talked to One Nation's most high-profile recruit, Barnaby Joyce, on this program on The Kenny Show last night, and I asked him to respond to comments that were made on Sky News yesterday by veteran political commentator Paul Kelly. Here is what Kelly told my colleague Laura Jays yesterday.
Pauline Hanson is not fit to be Prime Minister of Australia. She's not equipped to do the job. She can't do the job. Now, I understand the jibe coming from people, she couldn't be worse than Albo. Well, I'm here to tell you, she could be a lot worse than Albo. She could be a lot worse than Albo. And at some point, Australian common sense and resilience and capacity to assess politics has got to come into play with some sensible assessments of the limitations of Pauline Hanson.
Now, Barnaby's been in Parliament about as long as Pauline Hanson, and I'm sure has had thousands of words written about him by Kelly, was diplomatic in his response, lauding the Australian's columnist and his longevity. Now, I wonder if Barnaby feels the same way after Kelly wrote in the Australian today, and I'm quoting here, Pauline Hanson would threaten every aspect of this country, from its prosperity to its cohesion, leading a party that has built nothing and shows no capacity to exercise executive power. He finished his column by urging opinion-making organs, whatever that means, to investigate Pauline's dubious, his words, not mine, ties with Gina Rinehart. Typical establishment paranoia, I would say, and an attitude like that is exactly what's driving people into the arms of One Nation. Pauline Hanson joins me from Canberra. Good to see you. Do you care what people like Kelly write about you?
Not at all. I tell you what, it's really getting to him, isn't it? This elitist attitude.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
exactly right.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he says, I don't have the ability. When I first got in, Steve, in 1996, and I got the support, especially when I led the party and after my maiden speech and all this happened, you know, John Howard had to listen to my policies and things because he knew that he was losing support and turned back the boats. That actually came from me. So even this time around, and I haven't been in for 30 years, I was out of Parliament for 18 years. So what's happened since I've come back in, I've rebuilt the party from nothing, all right? So I've got members now elected across the country and the state who are doing a fantastic job representing the Australian people. So to say I don't have the ability, well, here we have a Prime Minister who always says he grew up in a housing commission house. What is the difference that I've come out of small business of running my own fish and chip shop? That's what's so great about this country, that anyone can aspire to the position of being Prime Minister of this nation. And don't forget Ben Chifley, who was in the 40s, our Prime Minister, who was a train driver. So it just tells me, I think Paul Kelly is a card-carrying Liberal Party member and will ever and a day always attack me or One Nation because he doesn't like what's happening at the moment. But they've got to be responsible for the way the country's in a mess and people are screaming out for change.
You got them rattled, haven't you?
It appears that way, but it's not me. I've given the people an alternative to vote for other than the two major political parties. They are the ones that have put this country in the situation we are now, not Pauline Hanson. They need to look in the mirror. Mass migrations created housing shortage, people living destitute, people who can't afford to put a roof over their head, people, 7 million Australians can only afford one meal a day. In a country as prosperous as what we used to be, you can see the division that's happened under this government. They also brought in a divisive voice to Parliament. That people rejected that. Climate change, how well's that been going for us? Escalating power prices, 50,000 small businesses insolvent, over 1,400 industries and manufacturing gone, 147,000 millionaires left the country because there's no incentivising anyone to invest in Australia anymore. I want change. I've put my policies out there. I and my party and my team around me, I'd say, have been driving the agenda. Why do you think they're picking up a lot of my policies? So, Paul Kelly, if you don't think I've got answers, you're a fool.
Well, I think he really does represent the elites. I mean, you and I caught up in that seat in Nepean in Victoria I mean, that is a wealthy part of the state of Victoria. I know for a fact there are women and children, victims of domestic violence, Pauline, sleeping in their cars in car parks next to caravan parks, using the facilities in caravan parks. That's 2026 in Australia.
Steve, you know, I just did a 4-day tour throughout Queensland. I did 4 speaking engagements one day. I started at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning actually, and by the time I climbed to bed at 11 o'clock that night, talking to ordinary Australians out there from all different cultural backgrounds, all different professions, you know, from the youth to the aged Australians and farmers, you name it, small business, everyone like that. And, you know, I was anxious to get home, but I got a call through my office saying, Pauline, can you stop and see this woman? She's living in a caravan and she's destitute now, she's been told, because she's behind in rent because she had to pay for her husband's funeral. She's destitute now that she's going to be thrown out of her caravan. She doesn't know where to go, who to turn to. She's been to the departments. So still 2 hours from home and a 4-hour drive. I called in to see her. And it just disgusted me to see the way this woman is living, the conditions in this caravan, no caravan park, nothing, paying $360 a week. How these people have been ripped off, how they're being treated, and there's nowhere to go. I understand the situation, Steve. And a lot of these elitists in your own little you know, your little bubbles and all the rest of it, you're protected. They haven't got a clue what is happening out there. And if I can make an iota of difference to these people to give them hope, that's why they're looking for hope. Someone who really cares about this country, who's patriotic, loves the Australian flag, who wants to see our farming sector survive and industries, manufacturing, and to give hope for their children to one day own their own home. Well, I'm going to keep pushing forward. And hopefully I can turn around the mindset of some of these politicians in here who have no idea.
Let's hope you can. I mean, just briefly, another poll out today, the Sky News Pulse poll. It's got Labor at 29. It's also got you in front of Labor at 29, up 4. Labor's fallen 3, down on 26. But what was really interesting in that poll, 44% of coalition voters opened to you teaming up with government. But what I really wanted to show you was the Pulse poll has working class Australians surging into support for you. Now, that doesn't surprise you, but it's going to send a shiver through the Labor Party.
And so it should, Steve. You know, the Labor Party have to take responsibility for the mass migration we've had come into the country. So this has just made people homeless, poor, you know, and it doesn't matter where you go in the country now, just the congestion on our roads. You know, people are having to be away from home a lot longer just to travel to their jobs. All this is, and the escalating power prices, as I said before, this all adds to the cost of living, the poverty that's happening. It's disgraceful. And now they're starting to understand, you know, these rusted on. And down at Nepean, when I went there, this 96-year-old fellow came up to me and he said, you know what, I've been a Labor voter all my life. He said, no more. He said, I'm voting One Nation. And that is common to me now. So it's just not the coalition, but these Labor voters are looking for change, and they're not, the Labor Party hasn't been loyal to them. They haven't supported them. They've made their life harder. You know, the working conditions and everything, it's harder for them. Their lifestyles, owning their own home. And the lies, they're fed up the lies. You keep telling us you're going to do this and it doesn't happen. So these politicians are out there protecting their own positions, their own jobs, and they're not delivering for the people. Our job is to ensure that we give people out there a quality of life, a standard of living, and to look after their best interests. Our governments have failed the people.
Pauline, great to catch up. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Steve.
A veteran commentator stands up on national television and says a sitting senator simply does not have what it takes to run a country. Bold call. Except the senator in question just smiled, leaned into the microphone and absolutely levelled him. Stick around because this one gets spicy fast. The stage is set on Sky News. Paul Kelly, one of the most respected voices in Australian journalism, questions whether Pauline Hanson has the executive capacity to lead the nation. Hanson does not flinch. She calls it elitist, out of touch, and frankly, exactly the kind of commentary you would expect from someone she brands a card-carrying Liberal insider. Ouch.
But here is where it gets interesting. Hanson is not just playing defence, she is going on the attack against both major parties. Her argument, roughly translated from politician speak, both Labor and the Coalition have had their turn and Australians are still struggling to keep the lights on and a roof overhead.
Speaking of roofs, let us talk housing, because this is where Hanson says the wheels really came off. She points to mass migration outpacing housing supply as a major driver of the crisis. Add in Hanson's claims about rising power prices, small businesses going under, and manufacturing jobs disappearing overseas, and you start to see the picture she is painting. A nation running on fumes while Canberra debates from an ivory tower.
Now for the twist nobody saw coming. Recent Sky News polling reportedly shows One Nation running neck and neck with Labor, with real traction among working-class voters, tradies, small business owners, even long-time rusted-on Labor supporters who feel abandoned by their own team. That is the political equivalent of your local footy club suddenly poaching players from the reigning premiers.
Hanson leans hard into her own story here. The fish and chip shop owner turned senator, rebuilding One Nation from practically nothing after 18 years out of Parliament. Say what you want about her politics, that is not exactly a soft landing pad. That is grinding it out from the bottom. Her closing pitch is simple and punchy. National sovereignty, economic self-reliance, and social cohesion. Whether you're cheering or groaning at that list, one thing is clear. Hanson is betting that everyday frustration beats polished credentials at the ballot box. So here is the real question worth sitting with. Is this a genuine shift in Australian politics, or just noise before the next news cycle swallows it whole? Worth watching closely either way. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.